Hi, my name is Joel Kowalski with Ottawa Kayak School, and we're here on the Ottawa River in Whitewater region, Ontario, and I'm going to talk to you about how to read Whitewater. At first, Whitewater can seem chaotic and hard to understand, but with little practice, reading Whitewater can become second nature. First, we should identify some common river terms so we know what we're talking about. 5 things I'll introduce today are current, eddy, eddy line, waves, and holes. There are many more features than that, but for this lesson we'll just stick to the basics. So let's examine these river features a little more in depth. Current. Current is where water is flowing downstream. It often forms a recognizable downstream V. Pretty simply, current is flowing water. All you need is a little gradient, and water will start moving. Current will flow in a straight line until it's forced to change directions by an obstacle. So current will always be strongest on the outside of a turn, for example. The next thing we'll cover is an eddy. Eddies form on the downstream side of obstacles, like rocks or trees. This is where water can be shielded from the force of the main current. Eddies might sometimes look like they aren't moving, but in fact they are. Current in the eddy flows towards the object that created it. Eddies can be broken down into 3 zones. There's the standing part of an eddy. This is the part of the eddy where water is moving the least. You could park your boat here and stay still for as long as you want with minimal strokes. It's often found right in the middle. The draining part of an eddy is the downstream end, where water is beginning to flow downstream again. In this area, you'd need to paddle to keep from falling out of the eddy. And see the filling part. Here the current is flowing back towards the obstacle that created it, and in the most noticeable way. In many eddies, this current can pull you right up against the rock or even back out into the main current. Next, let's look at the eddy line. Eddy line is the swirly water where the current and eddies meet. Eddy lines are narrowest at the upstream point where they begin and widest at the downstream point where the eddy ends. You can often find seams, boils, and whirlpools on eddy lines. The easiest place to cross an eddy line is often at its upstream point because that's where it's narrowest, but not always. On to the next feature, and one of my favorites, waves. In natural rivers, waves are most often formed by currents slamming into and being slowed down from downstream water. Waves come in many shapes. Some are big, some are small, some are green, some surge, some break, and even crash. A lot of waves even blur the lines between holes. On the river, you'll often hear a term wave hole when something finds itself in between those categories. So moving on, we'll talk about holes. Holes form when water flows over a ledge of rock. The water is forced downwards. Water on the surface of the obstacle downstream then is forced to flow back upstream into that depression or hole. And what that creates is a strong recirculating current. We can identify holes in a couple different ways. Some are known as terminal holes, some are known as frowning holes, smiling holes, play holes. All of these different terms have to do with the way the foam is shaped and the strength and size of that recirculation. I'm Joel Kowalski with Ottawa Kayak School on the Ottawa River in Whitewater region, Ontario. We just covered how to read Whitewater, an important skill for enjoying the river.
Learn more paddling skills at paddlingmagazine.com. Watch The Canoe, an award-winning film that tells the story of Canada's connection to water and how Ontario is enriching the lives of those who paddle there. Visit CanadianCanoeCulture.ca.